My camera right when it starts. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Nostalgia Train Book Club discussion for Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief. I am your host, as always, Violet of the channel, Writing Violet. So this one, Percy Jackson, it's been one of the big names that has been requested since we hopped on this crazy nostalgia train. And I've never read it. This was my first time reading it. And the whole time I was thinking, I was so into Greek mythology, like in middle school, this would have been perfect for me. And it wasn't until like half an hour ago while I was getting ready, I realized it wasn't published when I was in middle school. It was published in 2005. I was in high school. So I was just too old for it. So literally the whole time I was like, why didn't I read this? It was marketed towards boys, this and that. And turns out I was just too old for the series at the time. So so this was my first time reading it. I'll let my co-hosts introduce themselves and say their experience with the book. Anne, take it away.
I'm Anne. I do all the things. This was my first time reading Percy Jackson as well. I got the full box sets of all 5 books for my birthday. I think it might have been in 2020. From like really good friends, and so they've been asking me like, have you read it? Did you like it? Because they read it, and I've been like, no, I'm waiting for the book club to, catch up and read it. And now we're here. And it's totally red, as you can see. If I tilt it this way, it looks completely red. So that's what we're going with. I was a bitch for like mythology. I still am. So, it's also right up my alley, but I never read it, even though I was technically the right target audience, I think, in terms of age, but I don't know. I don't think it was that big here. Maybe I'm mistaken. That's it.
Hi, I'm writing mom Samantha Elnasset. On my channel, I talk about writing things, parent things, and writer parent things. I won't do the whole spiel here since I'm guesting. However, you can check out my website, samanthaelnasset.com, where I've got a sample of my writing. Sign up to my newsletter, which should be going out tonight or tomorrow. And yeah, I host very similar live streams to this on my Mondays when we do Let's Talks. My experience with the book is it came out when I was 16, and I didn't hear about it until I was in my late teens, early 20s. And so I was like outside the age group, but I still read it and enjoyed it. And then my children, who I'm dyslexic, and I believe also a very small form of ADHD, because when you have dyslexia, it's often called the grab bag disorder. You have dyslexia, and then you have a lot of other things, but not strong enough to be diagnosable. So when my kids started school age, I definitely picked up this book for them, and it's one of their favorite bedtime books. I have heard it like 10 times within the past year. Sorry, my cat knocked something over. But I did I have 4 cats. But we did I did a reread yesterday and took many notes. I have many thoughts. Over to you.
Hi, I'm Alexandra. I'm new to AuthorTube. I just posted my first vlog, so that's fun. My experience is, it came out in middle school, when I was in middle school, but I didn't read it. It wasn't really popular yet, but I read it in high school in my Latin class.
Mm-hmm.
So I really liked it then, and I've read all the way up to Mark of Athena, because I've never been able to finish it. But yeah.
I don't even remember hearing about this book until the movie came out. Did it come out in 2010? Am I making that up? The movie?
I don't know about the movie. I know that if I remember correctly, because I said 16, so 2006 was when the first one came out. And then, my baby sister, I believe, was in middle school at that point, though.
Okay, yeah, I lied. It did not come out when I was in middle school. I thought it did, because that's when I heard about it, but I was 4, so.
The first time I even remember hearing about it, was when the movie came out, and then people said it was a bad adaptation, or that's what I'd heard, the buzz on the street, so I never bothered seeing the movie. And also, I think, like what I said before, I think it was very much how I heard about it was sort of like, oh, if you are a Harry Potter fan, read this. And I was a Harry Potter fan, but I never thought to jump over and read it. Again, I was a little bit older, and it wasn't really maybe where I was at the time with my reading, as well as the fact that I do feel like it might have been maybe a little bit more marketed towards boys.
Oh yeah, for sure it was.
So, who do we have in the comments? I saw Casey who didn't finish the book. That's all right. You don't have to finish the book to be here. Hi, Michael, Nikki, Callum, Crystal. Nikki also didn't finish. M. Yeah, Callum had said he had read it before. Everybody's getting on board the train theming. Thank you very much for that. Flora and the Fawn. And I love this trident emoji. In the Discord, I used the lightning bolt for Percy Jackson because I didn't know there was a trident emoji. I'm going to have to change it to that.
To be fair, book one's the lightning thief. So,
well,
spoiler free, the lightning bolt is better.
Yeah, the thing is, that's true, I guess. But I think it just doesn't say on the dust jacket.
I don't know.
I'm not sure, but when I looked at the book cover, some of the other book covers did have very water imagery. I have the very ugly UK edition.
I have a box set, which is so basic.
The regular cover, yeah, that one.
Okay.
I've got the audiobook.
Let's open up book covers. I love it.
Yeah, a lot of times I'm also reading the audiobook or ebook for the book club, but yeah, I saw this at a flea market. Oh, nice. Like I got this one and what's the next 3 for €3, all of them. So that was a grab.
Oh, the Y in Percy is a trident. So
yeah, I knew I saw it somewhere. Do not even mention that movie. Okay. This is how I felt about Freak.
In mild defense of the movie, I remember watching it and feeling it was a fine adaptation with the exception of 2 major plot things, which then made me feel it failed. So I don't think the movie as a whole sucked.
I would like to watch it now that I've read the book. But there is going to be a film adaptation. Or not a film, a TV thing coming to Disney Plus. That's what Wikipedia said, at least.
Is the character actually going to be Percy's age this time?
No.
Oh yeah, that was the criticism I heard, is that they made him a teenager and then it messed up the whole everything. Emma's saying, there was a group of kids at my elementary school and middle school that were really obsessed with it, so I feel like I heard about it everywhere. Okay. Also, they're apparently making a new TV show. Yeah. Because I think Rick Riordan was really unhappy with the adaptation.
The movie made Hades the bad guy, and that was like one of the red herrings. It was like the biggest red herring in the book that was subverted because Hades is almost always the bad guy.
Yeah.
What?
Except when it's a Hades and Persephone retelling, then he's like the good guy.
Yes.
Yeah, I also listened to parts of the audiobook and it was confusing me so much because I hate it when I have one UK version and one US version, like physical and audio. The same thing happened with Cirque du Freak when I read it.
Oh yeah, that sucks. I'm reading the German one.
It's annoying because they switch things around, because even the chapters, like my first chapter is I accidentally vaporized my maths teacher, and isn't it my algebra teacher or something? In the American version?
I'm checking. I accidentally vaporized my pre-algebra teacher.
Okay, yeah. So there were several instances of that, of like weird word changes. Or sometimes I wasn't listening to the audiobook and I was like, oh, they changed. They changed this for the UK edition.
What is your chapter 3 called? If I may.
Grover. Oh, yes. Grover unexpectedly loses his trousers.
Okay. That's a fair change, because I think pants means something else in the UK.
Yeah.
Doesn't it?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought. So I was like, wait a second, what would that have been?
Yeah, so there were several just small things like that. And personally, I don't like when books do that. It's a pet peeve of mine. But I think they should just keep it the same, because that was my problem with Cirque du Freak too, because it's originally a UK book, and the Americanized version really bothered me. I tried to listen to it on audio. It was fine, but didn't keep up my attention. Yeah.
I think it's because, well, I don't know what speed you listen to it at, but definitely if you listen to it at 1 times, he talks like very slowly. And Percy rambles so much, which I love from the perspective of somebody with dyslexia and ADHD. I think that Rick Riordan did a masterful job portraying the mind of somebody with those things. But because of it, Percy is very rambly and he kind of gets hyper focused on certain things and then just jumps. So I can see how that would be difficult for some people to follow along with, or just not as engaging.
Yeah, I also had a slow start getting into it. I loved the first chapter, and then it kind of had a little bit of an issue getting into it. But again, I'm not a 12-year-old boy, so maybe, I'm not sure if that had anything to do with it. You're definitely right, Violet, about it being marketed towards boys. I remember our local library and school trying to get boys to read more. I saw the movie first without knowing anything about the book, so I couldn't compare the two. Mm-hmm. Yeah, really. Why would they change algebra? Like, it's not like it's called something different. Also curious what everyone's deity parent is. Yeah, I was actually wondering about the fandom at the time, because I thought it was going to be more about camp. I thought the whole book was going to take place at camp, because that's everything I heard about it, that it was a camp book, and then to find out it didn't really take that place at camp, I was like, what? 1.5. At this point, I'm going to put up our spoiler banner because I forgot to do that earlier. And yeah, I don't have any discussion topics planned. I thought we can kind of just go with the flow.
Organic.
Yeah. So let's just start with basic thoughts, pacing, tone. Anybody have something?
I'm trying to let anybody else go first, is why I'm quiet.
Well, I feel like there's so much happening in the book. Like, I know it's a long book for middle grade. Like, this is like 450-ish pages. So it's long for middle grade, but still I feel like it's so packed of like stuff happens and happens and happens and happens. But I'm still not like overwhelmed. Like, it doesn't feel like, I mean, he jumps like in his head, but I still feel like everything has like its reasonable time to happen, mostly. Am I making sense?
I think because of the way he does the jumping, he is able to interweave details and background threads without like making it like too glaringly obvious, but also like kind of you should pay attention. Like whenever Percy talks about what the reporters are saying or the newspaper, and the building narrative of how the world is perceiving what's going on with Percy and them. And I think that was a really clever way to show how the mist works in keeping people from knowing what's going on, because it's like that's a lot of people have that problem with contemporary fantasy books like this, where it's like, okay, well, how are these kids running around New York fighting monsters and stuff and nobody's realizing what's going on? And it's like, you're getting the news reports. People are perceiving that this 12-year-old boy is just beating up on these old ladies. And then like, oh wait, no, there was a guy there who he was actually the one who blew up the bus, and Percy was trying to like save his friends and stuff. So it's just very interesting to me to see it. And I think Rick does a really good job of leading into that, so that by the time we get to the end and they need to get those plane tickets back home, it's not a MacGuffin. It's not a Deus Ex Machina. It's something that he built towards, and that like it's payoff now. And so I really appreciate how he handles that. And that's something that he continues throughout all his other books that I've read.
Yeah, I think the mist aspect was really well done. I never, as the reader, felt like, oh, this is a far-fetched explanation to get away with this. It always seemed believable for the genre and for the tone of the story.
Yeah, it's such a big part of it. Like, it just makes sense to have the mist there. It's interesting they didn't include that in the movie either. I'm still salty.
We love some
Fair.
salt, huh?
All the salt.
One thing I really liked, though, about the pacing was it felt almost episodic. I think it will actually work really good as a TV show because it really felt like each of the sort of gods they were meeting along the way, it really felt like its own standalone episode, you know, like the Medusa episode, you know, the Ares episode. It really felt like that. And I don't know, it was just, I liked that style of pacing, especially like as a kid reading, like you get these sort of small chunk chapters. Like Sam, you said, like your kids listen to it as a bedtime story. I'm sure that would work really well in that sort of chunks, how it's paced, but yet it still flows together very nicely overall.
For the traditional way that parents would handle bedtime, yes. I just let it play till they pass out, though.
Valid.
I'm sure they have a great listening experience.
Yes, and then the next day they're like, okay, who passed out first? What part were you at? And we go back. So
Oh, Callum is saying something. To jump on the mist thing, one of the many changes they made in the second movie is they put the mist in perfume bottles.
there was a second.
What? Yeah. Didn't she change her hair color? Like the actress of Annabeth? I think she was
Y'all
blonde
don't
and then-
spoil the second book or the series for me because I
It
have
was
it.
just
I'm gonna
in the
read it
movie.
eventually.
It's just in the movie, and you already know that she's supposed to be blonde in the first book, and
Blonde
she wasn't
hair,
in the
gray
movie.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I'm like thinking because I've seen the movie posters.
Yeah, Annabeth is blonde hair, gray eyes. Percy's black hair, green eyes.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe I should have had discussion topics. It's hard to freeball it, but
So I appreciated some of like the in plain sight thing, how sometimes like with Mr. Brunner and Grover, it can kind of give a fantasy escapism for kids who may also like have some of those same disorders or illnesses. Like it's like Grover has a muscular disease and he walks with a limp, but he can run fast. Well, he's a satyr, so you know that's really easy for kids when they're playing pretend. They could be like, oh well, I'm a satyr, and it like opens up a doorway that they otherwise may have felt closed to them. And then some of the other ones I thought were particularly cool was like Mrs. Dodds is from Percy's. She's this 50-year-old lady who just walks around in a leather jacket. And I'm like, this is my kind of gal. And it's because she's a fury and therefore she has leathery wings and that's how it does it. And so I like how before he realizes we see everything from the mist perspective. And then once he's awakened, we get to see everything from like his perspective. And then he starts like, I wonder what others are seeing now.
yeah, I really kind of like I haven't been I'm a little bit rusty on my Greek mythology, and I really liked that he never like overly explained things. He just kind of put the things there and let them lie. So kids could go and like look up the Greek myths and get into that on their own. But if they don't know anything about it, this would be like their gateway. Because I know other series would kind of over explain, oh well, you know, Medusa, this and that, and this is her backstory and all this, and she's like this, and
like
it
that.
never really did that. It a lot of times let the things just be there and had those little pieces for people to discover. And I could see on a reread that it would be great to discover all those little things in there.
I like that Medusa was semi foreshadowed with Annabeth, which when Percy's like, why do you hate me? And she's like, well, you know, because our parents hate each other. And there's this one thing that happened. And then later Auntie M's like, so yeah, I had like this woman who cursed me. Percy's like, yeah, that's fine. And Annabeth's like, hold on. Wait a minute.
I think
And,
Medusa was my favorite. The way the way that she was told with the
Yeah.
gnomes, I thought that was great. That was a genius.
Dude, I like that Percy's imagination is so great because he's like, I think he's like, I think all these things about her, and her hand is wrinkly, but she seems super nice. So I imagine that she used to be a really beautiful lady, and now she's a nice old grandma. And I'm like, he's just giving this biography for this woman he just met. And then like you said, there's a lot of the stuff doesn't go into a lot of detail, but it is very nicely referenced, like the Lotus Eater Casino. Well, the Lotus Casino is a reference to the Lotus Eater story. So when they first enter the casino and it's like the Lotus Casino, I'm like, oh no. How long are they gonna stay here? And then with Krusty's waterbed palace, it's close enough to Proclustes that, like, when they start talking about the beds and him sizing, you can kind of be like, wait a moment. Is this that giant? Or is this a coincidence? And then it's like, no, it's him. It's 100% him, and now they got to get out of this. So I really like the way that those are done. I'm not a fan of how some myths are changed, but it's like, it's for middle school kids, so it's fine.
Yeah, I don't know, like, if I loved, like, Biker's Aries, I don't know. That one was that one for me was kind of weird, but
In my notes, I'm like, he's such an asshole, and yet my biker boy aesthetic is hashtag problematic Dave. Because I do like how he just comes in and he's like, I'm gonna feed you, because heroes need to eat to do what I need them to do.
But like I said, I really thought the camp was going to be more what the book was. Like when they first got to camp, and then like Percy makes like a line, like, and I didn't know, like I was only going to be there for a short time, and I was like, what? 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 I thought, like, I'm not that far into the book. Like, what's going on? Where are we going? I had no idea. I had no idea what I was getting in for with this, you guys.
We're going on a quest in our little rocket ship.
Yeah, so I was expecting really a summer camp book, and that's not really what this was. It was a quest book. It really had sort of a hero's journey plot line.
I like another thing that I like that he does is he deconstructs Greek mythology with the characters and everything. Because like when Percy's talking about, like when Poseidon says, I'm sorry that you were born because I've doomed you to a hero's fate. And then Percy carries that with him when he goes to talk to his mom. And he's like, in a lot of Greek mythology, when you have a mother and a son and the mother is in peril, it is the son who overwhelmingly saves her, and like he goes to so many lengths, does so many things to like save her and everything. And even when it ends happily, it never ends happily in the end for the hero or anything. And I like how Percy's basically like, I want to break that cycle, but I'm also 12 and I don't know how to do that. So he goes to his mom, and his mom tells him how she needs to handle it. And when I remember when I first read the book, going on about Sally Jackson for a moment, when I first read this book, I was in my early 20s, and I was like, Sally Jackson is in an abusive marriage for why? Because there's always a deeper reason. And this is a Greek mythology book. So like there has to be something to it. And then Grover just flat out says it at some point, and he's like, this man is so humanly repulsive, which I'm like, what are you saying about humans, Grover? But he's like, he's just something about him makes him the most human of humans, and that covers up that Percy is a demigod. Even though he is the son of one of the big three, it still covered it up so well for so many years. And so she stayed for Percy. And then when Percy gets back there and he's like, you know, Mom, you got to get out of here. You want me to kill him? I'll turn him to stone. I got Medusa's head right here. She's like, no, Percy, I was already planning on leaving. It's basically now that her son can't stay there anymore. She was already trying to figure out how to get out. She was just trying to figure out how to get out with her means. And then she does end up turning Gabe to stone, but she didn't want her son to do that for her. She wanted to do it herself. And that's also like this entire time he's been building up this resentment that Poseidon has never once helped out his mother. Even when Poseidon's like, your mom is a queen and I'm sending you a murder device to deal with that man. And she's just like, no, I didn't want your dad to take care of me. I don't want you to. It's my job. I will do it. And I'm like,
Badass.
it's a very realistic portrayal of a woman who has to deal with something that's very true to real life in a way that honors her and her agency and her strength, and gives her a happy ending, because she doesn't just turn him to stone. She then uses that to start her own financial comfort, because she uses that money to like buy herself a nice apartment, and then she's gonna get her life in order the way that she wants to. That is what we're told by the end of book 1. This is not spoilers for anything. And Percy's like, he's just proud of his mom, and he's like, you know what, we're finally at a point where I can just be happy with my mom, so I'm gonna go live with my mom and do school and then come back for summer camp and murdering monsters.
Yeah, it actually took me a while, like after that first chapter, to get into the book, because like how they kind of described his dynamic with his mom and his stepdad. I was like, oh, they're like really, overdoing this. They're laying it on real thick, like the bad stepdad. But it came back around, and I can understand for like a middle grade book why it would be like that. Like, I don't know. It took me a while to get into it. I'm going to be honest, that part. But again, I went in here not knowing really the premise. I thought I was getting a summer camp book. So was a little bit confused. Oh, I did like Anna doing the heavy lifting for us over here. Discussion topic suggestion. Thoughts on the Golden Trio? I think this is a great discussion. I'm going to be honest. Originally, when I started reading this, I had an issue with Percy, just as like a kid. Again, this came out as being to be like what I had heard it marketed as, at like, read this if you liked Harry Potter, and I just was so maybe just not upset, done with the idea of like you're special because of your parents or who your parents are. So I was quite mad at that idea going into this book, starting to read it. I was like, Percy, I need something from you. And yeah, really. But again, I'm not a 12-year-old boy. I know I'm not the reader for this. So, but I love Grover. I adore Grover.
Percy, to me, is every kid who had to deal, because again, I come at this from a dyslexic perspective, and Percy, he's trying so hard to do well in school and so hard to just do well, but it's so difficult when you're not given the resources to learn and everything. It's like you can study for spelling from dawn to dusk. Your dyslexia is still going to make certain letters backwards. It's still going to not make sense to you. And like when you try to read it, it's still going to jumble up and mix up and stuff. I have this, one of my symptoms, I call it the magic veil. And I will read a word, and I will read this very specific word. Like, let's take discussion topic suggestion. I might read discussion topic question, and suggestion will say question. I will see the word question, and somebody can be like, well, you're misreading that. I can't see the word suggestion at all until somebody says, it says suggestion, not question. And then all of a sudden it says suggestion. And I'm like, hold, that word was not there. That was a different word. And like, that's a thing. And when you're held to like, people act as if it doesn't affect you, or as if it shouldn't change anything. It's like, but it changes a lot, and it changes how you learn. And it's more than that, because it also means that your brain is just inherently wired differently. And I was actually talking to somebody about this last night when it comes to like grammar. Grammar will forever be my weak point. I can study the rules till I am blue in the face. And there are still some sentences to this day that I stare at for 5 to 10 minutes. And my husband's an English major. I have to ask him, I'm like, this sentence is sentencing correctly, right? And he'll be like, yeah, that's how that goes. It still feels wrong to me, but I'm told it's correct. So we're moving on. And I feel like Percy, Percy shows all of that frustration and that like building resentment and those negative feelings that you feel about that. And then to be told that all of that just means you're special. It just means that like you've got these ancient powers because you're a demigod. That is like, if I had that as a middle schooler, I would have avoided a lot of negative feelings in connection. Because even if it's a fantasy, it's still something to escape into. And so that is definitely what I feel Percy is for. He is for those kids who like need that and everything. And so dyslexia is also considered a genetic thing that you pass on or inherit. So it's like I can understand because we have a lot of stories like that. For me, I feel Percy Jackson fits into a different category of that. It takes an old, overdone thing and puts it into a new spot that's good for people.
No, I agree. I actually did come around to Percy. I just went into this a little salty.
That's fine.
But I did like the trio.
Right, we were talking about the trio.
How do we feel about Annabeth?
I don't.
Oh, I love her.
I didn't. I never did. I still to this day. I go in, I'm like, why you gotta be such a salty bitch? It's just like this. She comes in, she's like, this guy's my ticket out of here. He's my ticket to a quest. And then she's like, maybe you're not what I thought you were. You know what? I hate you because you're not who I thought you were. And he's like, I just watched my mom maybe die. I don't know what you're talking about. What? And then she treats him like she is like all the other gaslighting adults that came before him. She treats him so condescending and as if he's stupid because he doesn't know these things that nobody's told him, which is also a very relatable experience for teen Sam. So it's like, it's just one of those things where, and then eventually he gets done with her shit and he's like, why do you hate me? And she's like, I don't hate you. And he's like, then why are you such a dick? And she's like, because that's what you do when your parents are at odds. You be mean to each other. And he's just like, nah, I don't, whatever. He makes fun of it.
I kind of understood Annabeth's point of view because, she had experience in, being a half-blood. And that's like the one thing in her life she has experience with. So it's like her one time where she can have a little bit of power over somebody in the situation with Percy.
But
so I can understand that.
Justify being an asshole.
Well, she is 12.
I know.
But I feel like that's so
Kids are
relatable.
dicks.
Like, if you're in a camp and new people come constantly in and they always don't know what the fuck is going on, and you're always in the position of like telling people what's going on and helping them out and teaching them stuff, like at some point you just get fed up. Like, you don't want to keep teaching people. You don't want to keep hoping that they are the person who helped you get on a quest. Like,
but the only reason she's mean to him is because, well, first, he's not who she thought he was.
How dare
Not
he?
his fault.
How
Two,
dare he?
He is who she thought he was. Not his fault. And then once he points out to her that she is being an unreasonable jerk to him, she kind of has a reality check and she stops, and then she's kind of only mean to him when he gets her flustered. So like, I give her that she has character growth and character development, but that doesn't mean I have to like her.
I like her.
I like her too.
I liked her from the beginning.
And I love Grover, so.
Yeah, Grover's great. Going back to Annabeth, like the scene with the dog, oh my heart, that she was like crying a tear when she had to leave him behind.
I did love that part. I have many notes where I'm all like, that's right, play with the dog. Although I also have one making fun of them. It was like, hey, you heartless children, just leaving the dog alone.
Valid.
So good. Grover had a little bit of a different dynamic in the trio than you would have seen in other
for all
trios.
intents and purposes, he was an adult.
Yeah, that's the thing.
So,
he's not really their equal.
Yeah, so we didn't get a dynamic of 3 kids. We got 2 kids with an adult friend, and that was very interesting to me, especially since he was still very respectful to them and treated them as their equal. Like the only adult in the story who treated them that way, even like when Chiron? Yes, when Chiron was like, no, we should hide this information from Percy and stuff, like Grover was advocating that Percy needs to know these things to understand what's going on. So I very much appreciate Grover for that.
Yeah, he's just a bestie.
I mean, I don't think there's anything to dislike about Grover. And I was so nervous when they gave the prophecy that a friend was going to betray. I was like, not Grover. Mm-mm. It's not going to be Grover. Like the whole time, I was like, Grover, if it's you, man, I swear.
I would like to discuss Luke and how I also hated him from the beginning. And how in the prophecy, I'm like that phrasing, one who calls you a friend, because he's not your real friend. Percy, why do you care so much that he betrayed you? You have known this man 5 minutes. He gave you a pair of cursed shoes. You know they're cursed shoes. Why does...
Somebody put Callum in timeout.
I will.
I can understand. He's a very overbearing environmentalist who's very judgy. He says a lot of mean things about humans that everyone just kind of brushes over. But again, I can like.
You really put him in timeout. Okay, Nikki's saying maybe Annabeth she was jealous of Percy for having a mom.
Yeah, maybe
Having her human having a
being the
human
chosen
parent
one
there
as well. Like
For
Annabeth very much has I want to be the chosen one and the one who does everything.
I feel
Vibes.
clarity is needed. I was giving my personal opinion on Annabeth and why I dislike her as a character.
Somebody put Sam in timeout. I was kidding.
Now, an analytical opinion, an objective one, which I can give because I am a true Virgo, is that Annabeth is a great character and she is an amazingly portrayed 12-year-old who's gone through a lot of shit. And the dynamic with her dad, you have to wonder how much of it is how much of it she says is actually how it is, and how much of it is this is how she feels it is, which is still valid, but it's like how much does her dad actually care or not care? How much does he just suck at showing he cares, right? And then especially since like at the end where she's like, me and my dad, we want to make it work. If he really hated her or resented her as much as he did, he wouldn't even try. But like her feelings are still very valid, and it's understandable for a 12-year-old who was not properly taught how to regulate their emotions or treat people, because we know Dionysus ain't teaching anybody that. That she treated Percy that way because she has been waiting to prove herself and to fix things, largely, I think, because of Luke, because she feels really guilty about that and how bad he feels. Plus, she just wants to get out the house. And then Percy's an easy target, especially since he doesn't fight back. He just kind of lets her abuse him. But like, I since I was a small child, my mother has always told me I am responsible for my own feelings and my actions, and other people are not responsible for my feelings. So I can be angry, but I can't take my anger out on other people. And that is something I teach my children. So that is where my perspective is coming from, is like, as a 12, yes, she's 12. She's still not supposed to be able to get away with abusing this already abused boy because she's got feelings. But it's still a very realistic and a well-written portrayal.
Yeah, I don't know. I was an asshole till I was like 17, so it took me a while
I mean,
to learn that.
I'm still an asshole.
Okay,
Yeah,
but not because I'm in a bad mood.
Not because like just to be punching down, you know.
Mm-hmm. Which is definitely what I feel she did.
Because this is before we knew that who Percy's dad was. So she had no idea.
Even after knowing his dad's Poseidon, it's still punching down to be mean to him just because you're mad you can't go on a quest. He's also 12.
That's true. I do have some banners.
Yeah.
The tone and writing style. I really enjoyed the prose and the tone of the story in general. I really liked the writing style. It was easy to read, but without being boring as an adult, which I think is sometimes a hard line with middle grade, because I know when we covered Warrior Cats for the book club, it was sometimes mind-numbing at points to read. Whereas this prose was very fun, sarcastic, light, but still clever. What are you guys' thoughts?
I agree. I would have felt like the author was my best friend had I read this in middle school. Like, just my best friend talking to me. That kind of a vibe is what I'm feeling.
I did have a little bit of a pet peeve with the writing. It's just
Oh
like
yeah.
it's just like a few sentences, but it bothered me so much every time it happened. I had to put it down and like have a heavy sigh because I'm just like, oh my God, again. And it was every time they got into a weird situation or conversation, and he's like, and I suddenly knew that this thing that I've never heard of.
Oh gosh, I didn't even notice that.
It drove me insane.
I think it's supposed to represent that, like, their divinity just gives them knowledge, but it's like there's a better way to do that.
Like how Greek comes super easy because of the
Oh yeah, you're
dyslexia.
right. That definitely did happen. Now that you say it. Honestly, I thought with like the kind of clues with Percy having like a link to water, I was for sure on that like mattress salesman with Krusty. I thought, oh, it's because they're water beds and he's going to control the water or something. And that had nothing to do with it. I was for sure that was how this was going to conclude. And then it was like, oh no, it's the sword. Okay.
I like how Percy's told, I am the all-powerful prince, son of a sea god, and always forgets he can do water things in the book. He's always like, oh, I can do things. And Annabeth's like, water. And he's like, the fuck's water got to do? Right. I got magic. But I also like that he is the main character and he's super overpowered and it's water. Because nobody does that. And water is one of my favorite elements. So I love that.
That was honestly one of my favorite scenes in the book is when he gets to Santa Monica and just, walks into the water and like has that moment in the sea. I was like, oh my God, I love this. I hope that like later in the series, he spends more time in the actual ocean because that was awesome. I loved that.
I also find that so relatable. What is so nice
that I'm like, I want a shark to just come up and
yeah, I just thought that was an amazing scene. I was gonna say if I was a kid reading this, I would have loved it. Okay, I loved it as an adult. It was one of my faves.
I love all the connection to the water. I had already earlier talked about the tone and writing style. I think for me, because it's very, it's like my head is on paper now.
I did like how fast paced it was and the constantly changing topics. So it's like I wasn't getting bored. And I rereading it because I did read it in high school. I noticed a lot more foreshadowing. Like when he first gets there and he's in the Hermes cabin and he's talking about like, he thought about putting his Minotaur horn down because that's his only belonging. But then he remembers that Hermes is also patron of like thieves and stuff. Which was interesting because Luke was the lightning thief.
I didn't even catch that. That's great. Well, obviously I wasn't a rereader, but I did put it together after the fact.
I will say, so as much as I said that I don't personally like Annabeth, I do appreciate her as a character. And so she has a lot of moments that I really like and I enjoy and I like how she grows. And one of my favorite things is at the end when Percy's like, it was all Luke. And Annabeth, she starts to do that cliched, like, I can't imagine. But then she stops mid-sentence and she's like
yeah, I see
it. It definitely makes sense. Like, he hasn't been the same since he fucked up. Like, no, I get it. Damn, it sucks, though. And I'm like, I love that.
No, I really appreciate that Annabeth wasn't like a copy and paste like Hermione archetype. Like, good girl who just is the one who saves the day all the time. I liked that she was her own character. I really appreciated that because I never liked that dynamic in the Harry Potter trio. So I appreciated that it felt like individuals and not like, I don't know.
I think that's part of why I don't like Annabeth in principle, because even though she is a unique take on it, she still very much fits the asshole know-it-all who's allowed to do it because she's smart. And it's always a girl. And I hate that. Because I'm like, we can be smart and know everything and still not be a dick to somebody. But I'm also the person over here like, I love Aries, problematic fave, so.
I was just reading an adult thriller that had this let out a breath, didn't know I was holding in it. Cringe
that
every
drives
time
me
you hear that
crazy.
one.
Everybody's so mean to that, but I know people like that, so I have to defend them. That is a real thing. People do
Yeah,
it. It's
sure,
an
but
Can
not
you
anxiety
every
phrase it
symptom.
in
single
a different
chapter.
way? Can you also can we think of a new way to phrase the sentence? Like,
I know a couple people who have found new ways to phrase it because they're like they need it to happen, but they hate that it gets so much hate, so they're like, I need a new way to phrase it. But it's also there's some things that there's only like 2-3 ways to say.
oh my gosh, we should totally. Okay, this is like an idea for like a writing prompt live stream where we have like a bunch of just like figures of speech that we all have to,
Cliches, yes.
yeah,
and
cliches
idioms.
that we all have to rework. I'm putting a pin in that idea.
I think that would be excellent, and I would want to help do it because there are so many cliches and idioms that get shit on, but I'm like, I dare you to do a better one.
Oh, my zero drafts are always full of them, and then afterwards I'm like, let's be creative.
I say this, but I'm 100% a person who rewrites so many to fit fantasy things, and I like there's this one where I use the phrase like a little guppy instead of kitten because the person talking is a merfolk. And I'm
Oh,
like,
that's
get that
cute.
together.
Guppy is just a good word. It's good vibes. What's Callum saying now? I mean, when you think about this, is essentially raising child soldiers, which now as an adult is actually kind of messed up. I actually liked that it felt very parallel to real Greek myths where like Hercules was like also really young when he
Mhm.
started his training and got thrown into shit and nobody did anything. Like I remember in Greek stories they were messed up like that. So I like that they didn't like change it for modern audiences.
They very
Except for the
much-
movie audiences.
Oh.
Sorry.
well,
And it was also largely self-defense as well.
yeah, survivalism more than anything else.
Poor kids.
The one time, well, okay, I like Dionysus. I feel he's very layered and complex individual. But in like neither he nor the children are at fault that his father decided to place somebody who hates children to raise children. But he gets very angry with Percy's mom because and he makes a line. There's a line that it seems like a throwaway line, but I think reveals how much he actually cares about all of the kids. He just doesn't want to get too attached because they do die quite often. It's like him and Chiron are foils of one another when it comes to the kids. And he says, or Percy's like, my mom said that she didn't want to send me away and that she didn't explain anything because she wanted to keep me near her. And Dionysus says, typical. That's what they always do. It's how they always end up dead. And so like Dionysus is saying that like the human parents are always so selfish because they keep the kids until like they're bleeding or dying at the doorstep. And it's like it's one of those things where there's no win-win because he's right, but also it's their kid. And this thing isn't real to them. I also need to know who trained Sally Jackson. Because she's like the Minotaur, it hunts by smell and it can't turn fast. And Percy's just like, Mom, how do you know? And she's like, I've been preparing for this day. And I'm like, for how? Sally, how? Where did you get this training to fight a Minotaur?
I find this time and time again with doing these like nostalgic reads for the book club that like I'm always now empathizing with the parents. And I'm like, I want to know more about the parents. I need what happened with you and Poseidon, Sally. I need to know what happened on that beach. Come on.
They sound like they had a great whirlwind summer romance and he wanted to whisk her away, build her a castle. And she's just like, nah, I got a baby from you. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go do me now. Oh, you mean that monsters might try to kill him? Hold up. Monster Training Academy for moms. Find most repulsive husband as cover. And no one at the poker hall.
And why, honestly, he really went really like Ugliano as the last name. I was like, well, you really hit that one on the nose. I don't even know.
She got it on the way.
It's our evergreen topic that just sits in my topic banner folder because it's always a good one.
I don't know if this fits here, but have we talked about the whole gaslighting thing? How everyone's always lying or not talking to him?
Touched
Yeah.
on it at the very beginning. So the gaslighting thing, I like being included for two reasons. One, for the yeah, see, I want to take them, Becca. I need to know. So the like at first, it's even before, like, say you go into this book blind, right? And you're just reading this book, and these like everybody's gaslighting your memory. One of the things with dyslexia and ADHD is you remember things weird. Or because adults just don't understand you, they try to convince you that you're wrong or that it didn't happen how you thought it happened. I mean, they do that to neurotypical kids too. It's just like, so it felt so in line with that, and it's just like so relatable. It hurts deep in the soul. And then Kyron really angers me because I'm like, sir, you're an immortal centaur who has trained thousands and thousands of these children, and you think the wiser course of action is to continue gaslighting him into blissful ignorance when there is a whole ass Fury who he just had to murder, and you're trying to gaslight this boy into thinking he just borrowed your pen. And
Yep.
then you're surprised when he gets there and you're like, oh, your mom didn't tell you anything?
Yeah, I did read on Rick Riordan's Wikipedia that the whole start of the series was a response to his son getting the dyslexia and ADHD diagnosis and like coming up with stories. And I do love that aspect of it. And I think, it is like you always hear like in the writing community, like write stories that you would have needed as a kid. It's like, God, I wish I would have had this when I was a kid because I was into Greek mythology and yeah.
When I first heard that, I was just like, hold on. He really went in and wrote the story his kids needed. And then I reread it because when I first read it, I didn't know I had dyslexia. So I was just like, oh yes, relatable teen child, I feel you. I don't know what dyslexia is, but sure. And then I found out I had dyslexia, and then going back and rereading it meant so much more to me. And knowing that he did it so intentionally and with so much care, like you can see it. You can see all of it and how it's like, it's just so good and so nice. And I love that that is a constant thing. And
Yeah.
it's not like, oh yes, this kid is diagnosed with this thing. Here's two of the most well-known symptoms, and then we'll go on with our day. No, the whole thing, every scene has something that you may or may not realize feeds into it.
Yeah, I picked up on that too, to be honest.
I do have qualms with one thing, and it's when I can't remember if it's Annabeth or Grover, but one of them says, of course the teachers want to keep you medicated so you don't know they're monsters. And I'm like, I understand that that's how kids would feel, but Rick.
Yeah, I cringed at that line too.
But I'll forgive it because everything else was amazing. But Rick, I did want to call out that line.
I do have one issue with Grover, and that's his business card being in cursive when he's constantly seeing demigods with dyslexia.
I didn't even think about that. And there's another part when Percy's like, oh, it's in that fancy script that like hurts a dyslexic soul. And I'm like, relatable. I didn't even think about the Fat Grover as a cursive card. I'll forgive you, Grover, because you're still learning.
I liked Grover. I think Grover is one of my favorite characters. Just a fun one. He was
good, and I think he gets just better as the series progresses.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime you see him, it's just better and better. But yeah, the business card.
I like how he got his license and suddenly took the next step in puberty. It's like that connected.
That was hilarious.
It's like, oh yes, he looks like a high schooler now. It's like, oh well, that's good.
Hold on, just to jump and talk about the pacing. I also have a pacing banner. I really actually liked the pacing towards the end. Like I read the last like chunk of chapters like in one sitting because it really had that progression build. It was so well done to me, right? When they get down to the underworld and how it progressed from there with him meeting Hades and everything unraveling. Like I just found that it was well paced. I do have to say that it felt very episodic while reading it, and then when it got to the climax, it really came through. And did you make it that far?
We are back from the underworld, and we are meeting our biker bestie, and that's where I left off.
I appreciate that our biker bestie, though, is the king of war, does in fact lose battles, because a lot of people who like basically the only like when they show Ares or Athena, the only time they lose is to each other, and it's like no, they're good at war, but other people can be better fighters. So that's one thing that I particularly enjoy. And also, like, when you're fighting the ocean, no one wins but the ocean. So
except if you leave your shit in the ocean, then the ocean also doesn't win, because then it's, full of stuff.
I mean, everything, like, the ocean's already so full of fish it doesn't
To
care.
be fair, pollution was kind of an ongoing motif in the story.
And the book is from 2005, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like
six,
my bad. Yeah.
well, written before that, so probably 5. Oh yeah, there's a lot of underlying environmentalist themes and motifs and stuff, and I want to talk so much about that, but it's not book 1 stuff. So
okay.
I'm sure Violet and I will continue reading. Like, there's a chat in the Discord, right, for Percy Jackson?
Yeah. Well, the only channel that I ever deleted was Aragon, because that was when the book club was brand new, and I was like, live show's over, delete the channel. And then I was like, no, we can discuss in the Discord server.
Violet's Discord, the Nostalgia Train, there's a Discord. It's linked in the description if you haven't yet joined.
My links half the time are not working. It's part of my charm.
I will go test it for no other motives or reasons.
Yeah, but now I've realized to just leave all the channels up, because people continue on in series, chats happen. Not everybody's reading at the same time, so.
Oh, but if anyone wants to talk about Aragon, my book club is reading it next month, so we're gonna be talking about it.
I don't think I have time for a reread of that, so maybe.
But we're also reading other Dragon books.
Oh, you had the same cover I had. I donated my copy, but I also had the
she just has every book in existence right in a pocket dimension right off screen.
I have the blue one too. Those are the covers that I love. All my other ones are with that cover. This is the only one that I have, and it's because I got it for 25 cents at Goodwill.
Oh, fair. Can't be picky.
I stole this from my dad, and he was like, do you want to take all of them? Mind you, I see my dad every single week. So, like, I go there every single week. He's like, do you want to take 4 books that are this big to read in a week? And I'm like, no, thank you. No.
I hope later in the series, like, themes of, like, parent-child relationships continue, because I love that kind of family dynamic themes and stories. And it just really felt like we only dipped our toe in to the potential.
Do you want confirmation or denial or nothing?
No, I want nothing. But I'm just saying that it as far as themes go, we started in on the family theme, but I want more. So I'm hoping that that's where it goes. That's why I love, like, on these panels, that it's a mix of rereaders and new readers and nostalgic readers. I usually like to get a mix.
I absolutely hate spoilers of any kind, so that's why I don't attend things that I have not done myself. But I have friends who like spoilers. I have friends who don't like spoilers.
I love spoilers.
So I always ask, do you want confirmation, denial, or nothing? And that's like, it's a very non-leading question and doesn't give anything away. So
yeah, I think I will continue on in the series. If you would have asked me, like, I don't know, what chapter?
100 pages ago?
Yeah, there was a point in the book where I thought, oh, like, I'm just going to be lucky if I get through this for the live show. but it really picked up. Like, yeah, I think once Medusa got introduced, that's really when the story started picking up for me. When I started to say, oh, okay, we're doing these sort of small episodic adventures, running into different gods, like almost like little mini retellings within the story. And I was like,
Sort of
okay,
done so well as a serial, like
yeah.
split up.
Yeah, when I could picture it like that, I clicked with it. And then I realized what I did, like, again, we were building towards a goal with some of the other, books that we've covered for the book club. It's like with Twilight, we're like, what the hell is Bella's motivation? What the hell does she want? It was always very clear
It would
what he wanted and what he was going towards. And I love to see that in a book when I know what is my character's motivation and their goal at this point in time. And it was always very clear, like, what the next step was. Even if there was a lot of other moving pieces and side stuff going on, it was always, okay, let's get back to the focus at hand. We have the solstice, a hard deadline coming up.
That poor deadline. The other thing, this is another like kind of throwaway line from Chiron, but it's early on when he and Grover are talking, and Grover's like, but what about the solstice? And Chiron's like, well, they'll have to figure it out without Percy. And I'm like, Chiron, how do you think it's going to get solved?
War.
Again, you have thousands of years of experience with these people. But okay, sir. I love him, but he disappoints me in so many ways.
I have to be honest, one other gripe I had at the beginning of the story getting into it was sort of like the Americanization of everything. Like when they were explaining like why Olympus was now in New York and like Western civilization, I was like rolling my eyes like all the way back in my skull. I was like, oh my God. Like that was where I was like, oh, I'm not going to be able to get into this. But then when I saw like that we were going in doing the little sort of retellings and then I was like, oh, okay, I get it. But that explanation was kind of cringe for me.
At least it didn't go straight from Greece, Rome, America, they said that there was ones in between Spain and France and whatnot, but it was definitely weird.
I think if you look at who he says when he says it, it's based on whoever is considered the world power at the moment. And at the moment, I risk being hated by saying that America is considered one of the highest, if not the highest, world power because anything we do affects the rest of the world, which is one reason why we are so hated, because we're not good at what we do. But so it's like, I too dislike it, but I think Rick has a basis for why he does it the way he does. And there's actually a very common trend in supernatural fiction from the 2000s onward that do that with the shifting of power of Western civilization being New York specifically.
Yeah, I mean, the explanation came through at the end, but
it's just annoying.
Even like you said, Anne, when you were talking about it, you're like, I don't know if it was as big here. It makes me think, what was there a big of international appeal for this book for that reason? Because I'm imagining this like in other markets, people being like, oh, no, hell no, like with that concept.
I'd be so pissed if I was Greek and they'd take like our mythology and put it to America.
That's what I kept thinking too. It's like a real slap in the face to Greece in a way. Like, why couldn't they have been like, oh yeah, of course.
I feel bad for Rome. Because they're like, and nobody likes Rome. And I'm like,
I thought they were going to say something like, or this is how I guess I would have done it. Like, oh, there's access points like to this higher Olympus from all these different places on Earth. That's like how I would have done it. And like the gods can like come down of course they can come down at the Empire State Building, or they can come down at the Acropolis. The
gods can just kind of teleport anywhere. So that's like,
I just didn't like it that it was like New York is
where Olympus moves.
Yeah.
I have a bit of a problem with it because Mount Olympus is a mountain, like a real mountain. So I'm like, but by the end of the book, I feel like the Empire State Building is just an access point to Mount Olympus in Greece. At least that's how I choose to perceive it. I don't remember if that's actually what it is. It was 4 in the morning when I finished the book last night. And that part was less important to me than the brothers bickering. I was like, those two brothers are bickering, and then the kid comes in the room, and they're like, we'll continue this later.
Oh, wait. Casey's saying something? Yes, access points. Not that it is a moving thing that is now centered over... Yeah. I think it should have been more clearly stated like that.
I'm trying to remember something. It's fine. It's for later. Somebody asked about our thoughts on Luke and his motives.
It kind of makes sense. Like, finding out about everything that led up to it, it makes sense that he hates the gods and would want a war, and therefore do the things, especially if someone else is pushing him in that direction. But Luke in general is just awful. He's really, he was the most annoying character, I think, for me, actually. Just because of how fake he was.
I have strong feels on book 1.
Share them. Come on.
Okay. Well, when I have strong feels, I like letting everybody else share their feels first.
Oh, Violet's like, I'm gonna go.
Yeah, she's gone.
Let's share her. Felix, I'll be back in an hour when she's done.
Be shaded
Luke,
already. It's my first time here. No,
Luke did do that cliche villain thing at the end where it's just like, here's my entire plan. It was me all along, kind of a thing. And that's another cliche that I don't like, but it is middle grade. So
I feel like Luke is a teenager whom is throwing a huge tantrum / middle finger to get his dad's attention, and therefore is being used.
I think everyone.
Most of them have combined parent issues. So, yeah, and he's just done with all of his parents and his family bullshit. It is not on a magical, mythical level for him. He's been here 7 years. It's a very down-to-earth family issue for him. He's neglected. He's in charge of the cabin of the neglected children. Legitimately. Like, the people in there are his brothers and sisters and all of the other gods' neglected children. And this is who Luke is in charge of. So he gets to see the worst of the worst, like, all the time. And he's just a teenager throwing a huge ass hissy fit to get his dad's attention. The problem is that Grandpa is taking advantage of great Grandpa is taking advantage of this and using him to do other things. And Luke himself, after he fucked up the quest stuff, he now feels guilty and responsible that nobody else is allowed quests. So, like, he messed up, everyone else is punished, he feels like shit for it. He's now a jerk because of it, and is like, I don't like Luke. And I didn't like him from the moment he was like, hey, Percy, here's your piece of floor. Enjoy. And then he's also like, his whole hazing thing with new people is let me floor them on their ass in front of everyone else. That's not cool, sir. You're like an older teenager, young adult. You should know better. These are children. And then he gets floored on his ass and he's like, hold the fuck up. Let's do that again. And then he's like eyeballing Percy like, oh, he may be a threat. And I'm like, sir. Again. So, and like at the end when he's bragging because he got no credit. Because Ares got all his credit for his plan. And he's like, that was me. I did that. So it's just like,
I did kind of like that Ares was focused more on the war because Athena is always the strategist. So I did like that Ares, although he was a part of it, didn't make the whole plan.
Yeah. Really, they were just like, war? You like war? Here
Yeah.
you go. And he's like, I'm dead.
Go get it, boy.
That was one of my favorite Ares parts is when Percy's like, well, why don't you just use the Master Bolt to fuck shit up? And Ares is like, why don't I just... And then like his grandpa's like, Ares, we talked about this. He's like, but Grandpa, no, this master plan, big war. Right, no, I thought of war. Big war. Much war. So much war.
It's Callum saying, did you enjoy the capture the flag scene and Percy's parents reveal?
No.
I'm going to be honest. This is at the point where I thought this was a camp book. And I got to be honest. I think it's kind of weird, the idea of like ancient Greece like meets a lot of camp tropes. I found the concept because it wasn't a camp book and they didn't like go all the way in on it that this was a book set at camp the whole time. It was kind of like, we're going to introduce this concept, we're going to set up the cabins and how everything is run, and then it's not actually about the camp. So then it felt weird to me.
I actually really liked it because having that actual camp thing made it more believable that there are demi-humans that are there all summer long, and for them it is just a camp. Even though Percy and his whole quest thing isn't there, I felt like a lot of the stuff like that made it more believable.
That him participating in some regular camp things made it very grounded, so that when he had to leave, it's like he has somewhere to return to and people counting on him.
I hear you. That does make sense.
disagrees.
I just didn't like that they made it like so traditional camp, because it wasn't a traditional situation.
Yeah.
Like even like calling it a camp, like
I've never been to camps.
it felt very like a traditional
I've never
camp to
been to
me.
camp either.
So I'm a camp person, and I have a camp book as well in my pile of unfinished whips.
Okay, hold on. But did the camp you go to have magic goblets? Because if so, can I go?
Magic goblets. No.
It's another thing that I didn't like about the movie. There was no blue food anywhere.
It's so important to Percy and his it's such a great quirk for his mom. And just like when he thinks his mom might be dead and there's all the blue food, and then he's like, yeah, I want some soda. Can you make it blue? And Soda's like, and when they're eating when they're sharing the jelly beans, he's like, are there any more blue jelly beans left? Yeah. And I'm like, it's so small, but I hear you.
Yeah. Blue fits in here to the motifs for sure. Love it.
And did you like the capture the flag scene?
I did like the scene. I didn't like the parent reveal. Like, I wished it would have been more private and more like him realizing, instead of Annabeth being like, go to the water, see what the water does to you. What does it mean? Like, come on. You know, I wish he had more of like okay, what? I was in the water, now I'm fine. Like, you know, him realizing it by himself, maybe.
I agree. I was let down by the reveal.
I have mixed feelings because I do not agree with how Poseidon chose to do it. I understand him wanting to do a very public one, to be like, this is my son, stop picking on him. Like, I get that part. And that is essentially what he did, because like Clarice and all of them kept like picking on him because he was one of the unclaimed, and Poseidon's like, he is a prince god thing. But at the same time, I do wish that Percy had kind of figured it out more on his own. But he also isn't really equipped to figure it out on his own at this point, and the plot needed him to know sooner. And also, I like how, because of the way it happened, Percy starts to get a lot of mixed, like this, his whole life, he imagined that his dad had learned about him, had seen him like when he was a baby, and then went off to work and died, even though his mom like never says he died. That was this image that Percy had, and it was idealized. And now he's like, hold on, my dad's not just a god, he's one of the most powerful gods of all, and he's letting me and my mom live like this. And he's like, and he let me like get hazed and shit like this, and like it comes at such a heartbreaking moment too, because Percy had finally found acceptance. He had finally found a place he belonged, and then now he's ostracized again because he's a prince, sort of. So it's like he's so mad and resentful, and I'm like, and a lot of kids feel that way. So I was like, I appreciate that he was able to weave that part of it in. And then the way that Percy and Poseidon start rebuilding their relationship at the end of the book, I think was good, because Percy kind of hits on the fact that a lot of biological parents will be absent and then they come back in and they kind of act like it's no big deal, or like it's nothing, or like, well, yeah, you're my kid, so like we're owed a bond. But Poseidon's just kind of like, I don't know how to talk to child. And Percy's like, I respect it, because I do not know how to talk to dad.
I don't know. I feel like they could have done a lot more with it in the setup. And I wasn't really happy with the reveal, because we learn about Percy that he learned a lot about Greek mythology in school. Like, a lot of times he'll pull up like facts that he knows. And I thought, okay, once he realized he's a half-blood, he's going to be like running a laundry list in his head, like of, oh, this is my parent, this is my parent. And he didn't really do that fully, like to the
didn't
extent that
want
I
to.
would have wanted.
I don't
to
think
see
he
that.
wanted to know, because the moment he knows who to blame for hurting his mom.
That's true.
I
Then
think
I
it
at
was
least would have
just
liked the other characters around him, like playing the
figure
fun
it out.
guessing game. I wanted the guessing game. As a reader, I wanted the guessing game.
I feel that, well, the problem is most of them knew. They were like, it's Poseidon. We know. Like, and even Annabeth thought it was going to be Zeus, which fair, but
He already broke the oath once.
plus it's Zeus.
He is Zeus.
So it's like,
I'm sure he'll turn into a swan again at some point.
Dionysus is like, I want to turn you into a dolphin and send you to dad. It's like, Dionysus is not going to solve anything. He can turn him back.
Yeah, I think maybe it would have been good if Percy would have figured it out privately, come to
Yes.
terms with it, or at least been like, okay, I think this is what it is, and then had the public reveal in a moment where he didn't want everybody to know.
See, did it put a target on his back, or did it remove the target on his back? Because he was noticeably teased and harassed less after that moment.
And it did push forward the quest thing, which is what
That's
needed
true.
to happen because of the timeline.
And-
But also, if he did find out privately and then they didn't do a public reveal at all, he'd also have to fight to tell people, oh, by the way, I am the son of one of the big three. So, and
Could
the
you
gods are
imagine
busy.
him just finding that out and just never telling anybody? Because I feel like Percy would.
He doesn't tell anyone
he would just
anything.
be- exactly. So I feel it would be much more character for him to just go, if I tell anybody, I have to move cabin. That cabin is lonely. No.
Which is such a good point for kids moving. I feel like if you're like in school and then your parents move you and you're like in a new place, that's so relatable. Him all of a sudden being like, oh, my friends are there. I'm not there. Oops.
I'm not moving. I refuse.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. He really did have to find out when he found out for plot reasons.
Yeah.
And it's like, if the pacing, could have had space to spend more time at camp.
I think
it's
we're all in
already so
agreement
long.
that personally we wish it would have happened differently, but we begrudgingly plot understand.
Yeah, for the plot and pacing reasons, acceptable.
Still just love the idea of Percy just being Poseidon's kid, knowing he's Poseidon and just living his life as if he's like, yeah, no, I'm unclaimed. I don't know who it is.
We'll be now accepting everybody to post their fan fiction links in the Discord of all your Percy Jackson fan fictions.
There was something else I was going to say. I don't remember what it was.
How do you guys feel about how the story ended? Because I think compared to some of the other books we read, I was intimidated by Percy Jackson because I knew it was like a series and then like another series. Like, I was confused about the concept, and that was intimidating for me getting into it, not knowing really where the divide was. Like, there's these 5 books, 6 books, and then there's other books that are connected, or what's going on, or are all his books connected? But compared to like Aragon, for example, which we read for the book club, that ended where it's like, oh, this has to be a series. where this book ended, we're like, that was a satisfying conclusion to this story. But I could do more. I could go on in the world. And I really appreciated that, because I don't like when a series like ends where the book doesn't stand alone, and the book stands alone. And I appreciate that.
Yeah, I think Rick does a phenomenal job of understanding children's attention spans, and therefore testing the waters of a series, because that's what I feel a lot of middle grade, I mean, actually I would be happy if just all book ones were like that, but especially a lot of middle grade book series, you buy the first book because kids are still learning their taste, they're still filling out this series and stuff. So if they finish book one, that was a really nice read, but maybe it just wasn't for them, so you can move on to a new series. And I think Rick understands that really well, so he does, for the most part of my memory, end his books like that, where it's fine, you don't have to go on to the next one. I don't think he does it as well in Heroes of Olympus, but definitely in the Percy Jackson series, I feel like each book is like that.
I feel like it's because Percy Jackson, the first 5 books are meant to be more middle grade, and then the Heroes of Olympus is supposed to be closer to YA.
Yeah, Jason is 16, so
yeah,
you're probably right.
Okay, see, I didn't know any of this, and that's like I was intimidated by the series because I knew they were connected. I didn't know how they were connected.
Okay, so the Percy Jackson series is about Percy and follows Percy, and then the sequel series is the Heroes of Olympus, and it has 3 POV characters at first. And they're different. I won't say too much because it's a lot of spoilers for the Percy Jackson series, because it does take place after it.
Okay.
And the Percy Jackson characters do exist within the Heroes of Olympus. So there's that. Yeah, see, Calum says, I'd argue if you made it to Heroes of Olympus, you're probably going to carry on and read each book. That's a fair point too. If you're at the sequel series, you're just here, baby. You already know. And then, and then what is the Asgard one?
Oh, the Magnus Chase one?
Yes, the Magnus Chase series takes place during the Heroes of Olympus. So at some point in the Heroes of Olympus, you're supposed to go back and forth between those two for continuity.
Isn't there also the Trials of Apollo?
Yes.
Right after Heroes of Olympus?
I actually have a whole reading order because I'm going through all of it.
Okay.
I need you to share it.
Yeah, share it.
Okay, see, this is why I was intimidated with these interconnected series.
My reading list is called My Rick Riordan Read Through. And the first one, I'm just going to read all of the books that I have on this list. And this is the order, chronologically, that they go. Demigod Diaries, Diary of Luke Castellan. Percy Jackson 1, 2, 3. Demigod Files, Percy Jackson and the Stolen Chariot. Percy Jackson, the Battle of the Labyrinth, which I think is 1, 2, 3, 4. Demigod Files, Percy Jackson and the Bronze Dragon. Percy Jackson and the Sword of Hades. Percy Jackson Book 6, and then Percy Jackson and the Singer of Apollo, then, which I haven't read yet, the Demigod Diaries, the Staff of Hermes, Percy Jackson Greek Gods, which is really just kind of this is the lore and the mythos of the Percy Jackson universe and what is canon to that, as told by Percy Jackson. And then the Heroes of Olympus, Book 1, and then the Kane Chronicles, Book 1, and then the Demigod Diaries, Leo Valdez and the Quest of Buford. So I remember reading that when it was cute. And the Kane Chronicles Book 2, then another Demigod Diaries, Son of Magic, which if I remember correctly, his son actually wrote, but Rick says is canon.
Ooh, I love it.
And then the Heroes of Olympus books 2, 3, 4, 5. And the Kane Chronicles again, and then Percy Jackson Greek Heroes, which we're getting into ones I haven't read yet. And then the Son of Sobek, which is a short in the paperback version of The Serpent Shadow, the Staff of Serpis, which is also a short in the paperback version of The Mark of Athena, and then a short story called The Crown of Ptolemy, and then Magnus Chase, and The Sword of Summer. And then what the fuck is TT? Oh, the Trials of Apollo. I'm like, what is this?
Oh,
And then the Trials of Apollo, the Hidden Oracle, and then Camp Half-Blood Confidential, Brooklyn House Magician's Manual, Camp Jupiter Classified, a Probatio's Journal, Trials of Apollo, the next book, Magnus Chase, the next book, 2 more Trials, another Magnus Chase, another Trials, and then the 9 from the 9 Worlds, which I assume will be which Greek myths are canon, and then Un Natali Mezangu, which is a short on his website.
Violet's like, is this list ever gonna end? Like,
no,
Yes.
literally, like, I feel like all the words just of the list of things he's written is like the amount of words that I've like written all year, and he's written those actually all those stories. Like, what is it?
At least one of them he has not. I think a couple of the shorts might be by his son, but I know for a fact at least one of them is, and he considers it canon to his world. Because, like,
I would love my kids to write stuff in my world.
Brock, get on it.
Right.
Basically, he and his son were talking about something like world building, and his son was like, "Well, Dad, how does this work?" And Rick's like, "How you think it works?" And his son was like, "Well, I think that this would be really cool." And Rick's like, "You know what? That's a great idea." And then his son wrote it, and Rick is like, "This is canon."
I love
Aw.
that.
So
I
can.
love that too, because like he originally started Percy Jackson for his kids.
Now, to be fair, you could just read the series as like Percy Jackson, Heroes of Olympus, then I would go Kane Chronicles, then Magnus Chase, and then the Trials of Apollo. And that would be the least spoilery way to read them.
Yeah, that's what throws me up, is that they're all interconnected.
You just have to have like a really bad depression brain. Like you forget everything. It's fine. I cannot remember the beginning of the book.
Oh, see,
don't
I think the beginning
remember.
was memorable.
Yeah. I don't remember the Kane Chronicles really have anything to do with Percy Jackson, though. I feel like, because I read that one first. I read the series first in middle school, and then I read Percy Jackson in high school. And that's why I knew
There's
the author.
references. There's references to one another. If you're reading them side by side, you catch them, like the Kane Chronicles, and one of them mentions some shit going on in New York. So, I'm curious to see if like later on, because the Kane Chronicles, I think is the most. I think Percy Jackson, the first series, is the most standalone, followed by the Kane Chronicles, but it still like references things. So it's more of a fun Easter eggy thing if you're reading them in chronological order. And then it looks like Magnus Chase and the Trials of Apollo are supposed to overlap a lot. So it's just like depends. And I know I had started reading Magnus Chase because the Heroes of Olympus were on hold at my library. And then I got to a part in Magnus Chase, small spoiler, where one of the characters is like, "I have a cousin who could help us." Cousin is Annabeth.
I love that. Oh, I love her.
And then while Annabeth is guesting in Magnus Chase, she's talking about some really heavy spoilers for Heroes of Olympus. And I was like, what? Well, I have to stop reading now. So I had to stop reading. And then I was like, Rick, I didn't know there was a reading order. I didn't know these things were interconnected, sir. There was no warning.
Yeah, because I was gonna say, oh, maybe we do one of the other series for the book club, because I always just do the first book in a series. But it's like, if they're all gonna spoil each other.
Yeah, you don't want to do Heroes of Olympus before you finish Percy Jackson. Book 1 starts out very...
Because I've heard a lot of praise for
Does he have anything that's
Magnus
not like
Chase
connected
ones
to the others?
that are not on my list.
Maybe he has a pen name.
I think this is just something that he really enjoys and is passionate about, and he's like, all the supplemental material. Because some of the books on the list like are just genuinely, here's the world lore and the mythology. But I am completionist and have a mild case of OCD, so it like kills me that there's things that I've read out of order now that I know there's more things.
Well, I definitely. I mean, I own the rest of these Percy Jackson books. So I will commit to reading the next book and maybe the rest of the series. We'll see.
Oh yeah, I've already put in my reading journal of like series that need to get finished this year. So
I mean, I read Warrior Cats book 2 after the live show. That
you
was
did?
I hated that book. I hated Warrior Cats, and I give it like 2 stars. And Katie's like,
Oh,
it gets
what?
better. So I read the second book.
And how did you? No, wait. We can talk about that later. This is not turning into Warrior Cats discussion.
Oh, Warrior Cats. I'm still traumatized.
Yeah.
I think I stopped around book 6.
I
The first
do-
season.
I don't know. I was in middle school.
I do agree with Caleb. Spoiler wise, you can read the Kane Chronicles without spoiling anything. It's just an Easter eggy thing.
Okay, so maybe. Not like I don't have like a giant list of books to cover for the book club.
Right.
Yeah, I have the rest of the year planned out and like part of next year.
Everybody may see my shame of having read things out of order that nobody else but me cares about.
Yeah, I think. What do you think, Anne?
I was gonna say that I read buy second or third books in series without realizing and then read them. So you have nothing to feel shamed about, Sam. Nothing.
I no longer just purchase books randomly at a bookstore. I have my phone out and I Wikipedia the author, and I hunt down in the internet. I'm like, I will not do this again, because I bought a book 6 of a series and started reading it, and I was like, wait, what do you mean inside cover says part of such and such book series?
Yes.
Yeah, that's just a pet peeve in general, like books not being properly labeled when they're in series. Like, please put it very clear. Book 1 of this series, book 3 of that series. Like, my library, I know, does it like usually 4 on the digital whatever library usually likes to put, but it messes it up sometimes, and it bothers me so much.
So Savion brought up a thing which reminded me, because he says what's funny is each of the myths takes place in a different part of the state of New York. I can't remember where the Kane Chronicles does it. I think they're actually in England, but
They start in England, and at some point they end up in the United States. At one point, they're in Memphis, Tennessee.
yeah, they travel all around the world. But distinctly, because we were talking about access points, which is why I remembered it. In the Magnus Chase series, I think he's from New York, but because it's Norse and there's the 9 realms, they have access points in all over the world to get to the other Norse worlds. So New York just has an access point, but it's not like the center. Yeah, it might be Chicago. Oh, let me go.
I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued to check out more from Rick Riordan. It wasn't what I expected going in. I'm going to be honest. This book was not what I thought it was going to be. I thought it was either going to be a purely, Greek summer camp thing, or like, because some of the covers very prominently featured New York City, that it was going to be a very in New York City running around adventure. And it was neither of those things.
Boston.
Boston, okay.
Boston, Massachusetts is where Chase is from.
And I have to say, as far as like nostalgia wise, compared to some of the other books that we've done for the book club, for the most part, it aged, I think, well. There were some dated references in here and a couple other things, but I think still totally fine for a kid to pick up today. They're not going to know So Yesterday by Hilary Duff, but that doesn't matter.
I felt so thrown back though. I heard that and I was like, what?
I feel like I don't have any nostalgia attached. I didn't have any nostalgia attached to it until I reread it yesterday.
Doing?
Now I have 30-year-old nostalgia attached to it.
I feel like there was one other dated reference in here. Now I can't think of what it was. But kids wouldn't pick up on it, and it wasn't like super dated like in the way Twilight was. So it had an evergreenness to it.
Like my name.
Yes, Anne
That's
is an
reference
evergreen.
to something that Violet once said.
Yes, I said Anne has an evergreen name. It is. It's always a good name. Never goes out of style. And Brock, this is for you.
Yes. He also thinks my hand is for him.
It is. I'm gonna put down the band. I don't know, clothing. Not clothing. Closing thoughts.
I really liked it. I didn't think I was gonna like it as much as I did. This is a solid 4-star read. Hello, please continue. I got this to take care of. Yes, that's my thoughts.
I really enjoy Percy Jackson, and I especially think that it's good for some representation that doesn't usually, even if it's there, it's not usually representation that's done quite so true to life in so many different aspects. So I think that it can appeal to a lot of different kids within its target age group.
I enjoyed it as much as I did the first time. Still hate the movie. I think they completely butchered it. But yeah, I definitely like it. I have all of the books plus the Greek heroes and monsters, so I like it.
Yeah, I have to say I don't want to say I was pleasantly surprised because I expected it to be good. But after I started reading and wasn't vibing, it came around, and kind of like what Sam said about having some representation for dyslexia and ADHD, it goes such a long way. It really does. And it's not perfect. It's not the perfect book, but it was good. It's great to get kids into reading, especially like I said, that it's a little bit maybe more towards boys and to get boys into reading. Overall, would recommend. Positive review of Percy Jackson, and will continue to read other things by Rick Riordan now that I've dipped my toe into
the Riordan verse.
Yeah, I was gonna say I know there's a word for it.
I also feel like the whole dyslexia and ADHD thing was done well enough for someone who doesn't have it to understand. Not fully, obviously, but hello, get a vibe. No. We're not doing that.
I think it does. I'm trying to help Anne.
Not me. Sorry.
I agree. It does a good job of if somebody with dyslexia was trying, or ADHD was trying to be hey, so this is what I deal with. A good book to kind of help understand that is Percy Jackson, and it would you can go away from it and be oh, so when you talk about this, it's kind of like that, and it also gives a good middle ground thing. So it's your brain is battle ready. You're just noticing everything at once, and it's
Yeah, I also think it's just powerful even putting the words on the page, and it's right in the beginning, because so many books will sidestep around that kind of stuff, oh, maybe this character is this, or they never really say, or it is just powerful to put it right up front. And he references it.
Percy's you've got dyslexia and ADHD, and man, does it suck because of these reasons. And I'm boy, yes.
Yeah, and he references it and he brings it around, and
when he and Annabeth, okay, sorry, I just remembered these because you said that. One, there is a moment when they are trying to read Auntie M's Emporium, and Annabeth cannot read it either. And Percy's I thought she loves reading so much that maybe she was better at it than me, but no, she's dyslexic too. And as a prolific reader who's dyslexic, I'm it's a thing. So I like that there's the dyslexia is different because it's also different for every person with dyslexia, and I like that is also shown. And whenever Grover has to correct them, he just reads it. He doesn't say anything about it. They're just Usties Mat Res Lapsy. He's Krusty's Mattress Emporium, and they're right. And I appreciate that so much because other people, you're struggling to read it, and they tease you, they make fun of you, they treat you like you're lesser because you're struggling to read it. But not Grover's just let me help you.
Grover's a real one.
Did they also use the word translate? Because in the German version, they used the German word for translate, and Grover would translate words that Percy couldn't read because of his dyslexia for him.
So sorry, that was all I wanted. Or
I'm
just-
going to pull down the spoiler thing and put up the banner. Normally I put up the next book club pick, but for April there is no book club pick because it's Camp Nano, and we do not have any book club picks during Nano
Come
months.
join my
because
book club. We read this and
we are
two
a
other
book club.
dragon books.
Yeah, we're a book club for writers. I'm going to be busy reading whatever for Anne's book club next month and trying to write my own goddamn book.
The other book clubs we're reading, the other picks that we're reading is Hellfire and Priority of the Orange Tree. So
Which I'm also going to try to read. The Priority of the Orange Tree, but it's such a hefty book.
yeah, it's
I don't
only
think
like
I can get through
850
both.
pages.
I don't think I can get both and do Camp NaNoWriMo at the
That's
same
fair.
time.
Take your pick. All good. We
Yeah,
don't
for
read all
sure.
three.
But yeah, the Nostalgia Train will be back in May with Throne of Glass as our pick, which when I put out the Google form for the book club, this I put on there as just sort of like a joke option. Joke's on me because everybody voted for it. So we're now reading Throne of Glass, Sarah J. Bass in May. People better show up because they voted for it. If you voted for it, you're going to come and read this and talk about it with me. You guys
I'm
making
still
me read
recovering
this.
from the last Sarah J. Maas series. I'm sorry. Like,
I've
I need a
never
moment.
ever read Sarah J. Maas, so
You're not missing as much as people make you believe you are.
She did
Nobody makes
Court
me
of Thorns
believe
and Roses, right?
Yeah, you're not missing it
Yeah.
that much
I
if you're not
have a-
reading that.
I think I read like half of that book.
We read it
and
last
gave
month
up.
from
my
my book club.
husband has read it, and we agree.
Callum has volunteered as trivia. Callum's like, that was not me volunteering.
If you don't mind some very strong Sam opinions, I may perhaps also volunteer.
I have no idea what the book is about. I think an assassin. That's all I got. So, do I have anything else in the book club schedule? I should know it by heart. Oh yeah, June is Inkheart. Is what we're reading. That was the number one on the survey, and Throne of Glass was number 2. And again, we'll be taking then July off for Camp Nano, and August is the Raven Boys, and that is as far as we've announced up until now. So
I know what else is happening though.
and see the whole schedule, but that's going to take some time and planning on my part. I murdered this trade all by myself, guys. That's why it's a hot mess. Would my lovely co-hosts like to introduce themselves?
I'm here every third week on Mondays, where we do less organized stuff. So I'm me. Yes.
I'm writing Mom Samantha Elnasset, where on my channel I talk about writer things, parent things, and writer parent things, and quite often dyslexia, because yes, it is our personality trait. I am sorry, I'm not sorry. And yeah, you can catch up with all Sam things by going to my website, samanthaelnasset.com. I host talkie streams like this. We're going to be talking about The Mummy at the end of the month, actually. So Emily is going to guest with me, as well as Matt. That's going to be fun. The rest of the month, I'm just doing write-ins because I can't.
I'll be
plan
there.
things. And yeah, going over to Hall.
I'm
See, I
so
don't have-
depressed.
I don't have a nice clean intro like that at all. My name's Alexandria. I'm just started AuthorTube. I'm going to be doing weekly Camp Nano vlogs next month. So yeah, that's all I got.
I am also planning to vlog for Nano. That's my accountability to actually do Nano, is to do the vlogs. So yes, follow all the co-hosts, like all the things, and we'll catch you later, all you crazies. I gotta find the outro.
Stand well back from the platform edge. The next train, platform 5, does not stop here.